Hello friends, welcome to this part 2 of the video on the concept of input tax credit under GST. If you want to access the part 1 of the video, kindly visit the above link. Okay, let us continue the concept. Now we are going to discuss on the concept of apportionment of credit under ITC. Section 17 of CGST Act provides the provisions relating to apportionment of credit. Basically what this concept speaks about. This concept says that whenever any goods or any inputs purchased or any services availed, it should be used either fully in the course of business or for the furtherance of business. If, for example, if any inputs are availed which are partly used either for personal purpose and partly used for the business purpose is one scenario, and if the inputs purchased are partly used for providing exempted output services or partly for the taxable output supply. So if in these types of cases, for some elements, for example, inputs that are used for the personal purposes on which ITC is not eligible, that is one case. Second case, if the inputs are used which are used to provide exempted outward supplies, then on that also ITC is not eligible to be taken. So when an input is either partly used for this and partly used for providing taxable outward supplies, in that scenarios, how the ITC has to be apportioned between these two cases. That is what we will be discussing in this provisions. Let us go into the section of CGST Act. Section 17 subsection 1. That section says that when an inputs are partly used for the business purpose and partly used for the personal purpose. Input goods or input services that are used partly for either for business and partly for personal purposes, the total ITC, the input tax credit on those inputs shall be apportioned, which are relevant for the inputs that are used for business purpose and which are relevant for the inputs that are used for personal purpose. And ITC pertaining to inputs that are used for business purpose only is available for credit. You have to forego the ITC which are relevant for the inputs which are used for personal purposes. That is what subsection 1 says. Then we can discuss subsection 2. Subsection 2 says inputs that are partly used for outward taxable supply and partly used for outward exempted supply. See, we should first know that if an input goods on which you have paid taxes, it is an input goods on that you have paid taxes, and those goods, if it is used for providing any outward exempted supplies, then the ITC or the tax you paid on such inputs will become ineligible to be taken as credit. That is the basic concept under ITC. That is what even discussed in this section. But here the inputs are partly used for providing outward taxable supply and partly used for providing exempted supply. Okay, let us read out the section. Supplier makes both taxable as well as exempted supplies. This section applies to only suppliers who are into the business of making partly taxable supplies and partly exempted supplies. In that scenario, if the ITC has to be apportioned which are relevant for taxable supplies and which are relevant for exempted supplies, and the ITC that are apportioned or proportionate of the taxable supplies are only eligible to be taken as credit, or the ITC which are relevant for exempted supplies has to be foregone or it has to lapse. That here they also include taxable supplies, also include zero rated supplies, because zero rated supplies, though we are not charging any tax, it is not considered as an exempted supply. Zero rated supply is to be equivalent or equated to a taxable supply only. Okay, then we enter into subsection 3. Subsection 3 just defines what is exempted supply. They just provide the meaning of exempted supply. Supplies specifically notified by the government as exempted, that are all only called as exempted supply. See, generally all supplies are taxable. If some specific supplies are notified by government as exempted, then only those supplies will be called as exempted supply, and that is what will be referred here. Second, this supply, this exempted supply also includes, by virtue of this section, it also includes the supplies on which the tax is paid under reverse charge mechanism. See, those supplies, it is actually an input supply only, but because of this reverse charge mechanism scenario, the recipient of supply has to make taxes or pay taxes directly to the government. Just because the person is directly paying taxes to the government, that will not be called as a taxable supply. It has to be included only with the exempted supply because of this provision or this section. And transaction of securities, any transaction in securities, for example, sale of shares or sale of debentures or sale of any preference shares or whatever the case may be. So those are also to be, those transactions also to be included as part of exempted supply only. Then sale of land is an exempted supply, or it is not even treated as supply, which we have already discussed when we discussed in schedule 3. We discussed schedule 3, and one among that is the sale of land. Also sale of building, they say sale of building is also exempted into exempted supply, with one small exception. The exception to it is if the particular transaction falls within schedule 2, to be specific, para 5 clause B of schedule 2, then those transactions will not be covered under exempted supply. Clear? So transactions which are forming part of schedule 3 will be included in exempted supply, but if the transaction falls within schedule 2, I can give you a straight away example. You all know that a sale of land is not a supply at all under GST. Sale of building, already constructed building, for which you have the completion certificate already, that also will be exempted under GST, or it is not even a supply. It also forms part of schedule 3. But para 5 clause B, para 5 of schedule 2 says that only building which are under construction before, or either before construction at the layout stage or under construction during that time, if the sale is made, then that contract will not be called as contract of sale. It will be called as contract of construction. It is like similar to provision of services. It will be called as supply of services under schedule 2. So those services alone will not be called as exempted supply, but all other supply relevant to sale of land or building will be called as exempted supply, and incidentally which falls in schedule 3. Okay, there is an explanation also under subsection 3. What does the explanation says? Exempted supply shall not include any other transaction of schedule 3 except para 5. See what it says. Para 5 only says about sale of land. Para 5 only says about sale of land subject to schedule para 5 of schedule 2. That is what this explanation says. This explanation just wanted to exclude the other transactions which are within the scope of exempted supply. For example, you have made certain transaction for 1 lakh rupees, and 80 lakh rupees are called, it's a straight away exempted supply notified by government, and among that 20 balance 20 lakh rupees, in that 10 lakh rupees falls within the other paras of schedule 3, then it will not be included inside exempted supplies. Also it will not be even called as a taxable supply. It is not even a supply at all under GST, but because of this section, para 5 of schedule 3 alone is included as part of exempted supply. Clear? Okay, next we are entering into the relevant rules which are relevant for this section, because this particular section has only 3 subsections, and all the 3 subsections are already discussed. I can even repeat once again for your understanding purpose. Subsection 1 speaks about inputs that are partly used for business purpose and partly used for personal purpose. Then how the apportionment has to be taken, and input tax credit that is relevant for the inputs used for personal purpose has to be, it is not eligible to be taken as ITC. That is what subsection 1 says, and section 2 is similar to that, but the scenario here is the inputs that are partly used for providing outward taxable supply and partly used for providing outward exempted supply. That is what and how the manner of determining the apportionment of ITC and what is the treatment of the ITC that are proportionate of providing outward exempted supply, how the treatment has to be made. That is what subsection 2 says. Subsection 3 says it is just providing you with the meaning of exempted supply, and they also wanted to include certain items, though it is not called as exempted supply, but because of this provision it will be called as exempted supply. Clear? So we will see relevant rules regarding this, and the rules are mainly for the purpose of providing the calculation for this apportionment. The first rule we are going to discuss is rule number 42. Rule number 42 is on manner of determining input tax credit under section 17 subsection 1 and subsection 2. When we say that if the ITC is relevant for both the type of services which we have discussed under subsection 1 and subsection 2, how the apportionment calculation has to be made. There is a formula, straightaway formula given inside the rule, which I will be reading it now. Calculation of ITC on inputs used commonly between taxable as well as exempted supplies. That is what the main intention behind this rule. Okay, how the calculation of this common credit? The first step is to calculating the common credit, which are that credit which is relevant for both taxable supplies or exempted supplies, or even you can even call it as taxable supplies as well as business purpose as well as personal purpose. Okay, the first line, you have to start this calculation with, you have to take the entire input tax credit that is available for you in the given period. Entire input tax credit on input which is goods or services, the total ITC available in your current period has to be taken. You have to start the calculation from there. That you can call it as, denote it as T here, capital T. On that amount you have to first deduct the input tax credit on the inputs that are exclusively used for personal purposes. See, when you take the first line item, the entire input tax credit, you have to take entire input tax credit, whether it is exclusively used for tax or exclusively used for business purpose, or whether it is commonly used between these two. That is not relevant here. You have to take the entire credit. On that, the first reduction you have to make is the ITC on inputs that are exclusively used for personal purposes. Here we denote it as capital T1. So that's what we have to reduce at the first stage. Second, and then we have to reduce the input tax credit that are on inputs that are exclusively used for providing exempt supplies. So these are all will not form part of the common credit at all, because these are all exclusively used for providing those services, and that has to be reduced here because those are all ineligible credits. We all know that. So that we denote it as T2. Then on that we have to again reduce something called as blocked credits. There is a concept called blocked credits, which we will be discussing in our further slides. So that blocked credits amount also to be reduced from this whole amount, that is denoted as T3. Then we make a balance. We just arrive at a balance of it. That balance is called as total ITC available for utilization. See, the amount which we have deducted before are all ITC which are not eligible for utilization. So those ITC are already deducted from the total ITC. So the amount which we have arrived at now is the amount that are utilizable within the business. That we call it as C1 here. Then on that amount we have to make one more reduction. That reduction is nothing but ITC, the input tax credit, on inputs that are exclusively used for providing taxable supplies. We have to reduce that amount here. Why we are reducing that amount here? Because that amount is eligible as credit in whole. The whole sum amount is eligible as credit. So the intention behind this calculation is to arrive at the input tax credit on inputs that are commonly used between these two. So in that, whatever the input tax credit exclusively used for providing taxable supplies has to be taken away. That has to be removed away from this calculation. That is the reason we are reducing that amount. Next, after reducing this amount, what we get as balance figure, that is only called as common input tax credit on inputs that are applicable for both taxable as well as exempted supplies. So are we clear here? So this particular amount is denoted as C2. So the formula here, then we see the formula in a simple manner. C1 is nothing but T capital T minus T1 minus T2 minus T3, that is called as C1. Then we have to arrive at C2. C2 is nothing but C1 minus T4. So we all know what is T1, T2, T3 and etc. Next, here they also say that value for F shall be taken as 0. Value for this T4, value for this T4 has to be taken as 0 if it pertains to construction of property. As per paragraph, I told you that schedule 2 paragraph 5b it has to be included as part of taxable supply only. It cannot be included under exempted supply. So it has to be included under taxable supply. But while arriving at this figure, we have to first take it as 0. The inputs pertaining to those construction, we have to be taken it as 0 at the initial stage. Why we have to do that? The reason, because see, whenever you put a layout plan, for example, a real estate agent wants to promote a property, they wants to construct a property. The property, for example, you take it as 6 units. There will be a 6 residential accommodation or residential flat will be constructed under that particular property. If the property is at layout stage and you have started your construction, there is no sale made already, because the sale can be made at any stage, even at the designing stage also. Nowadays the real estate agent can make sale of the property based on the design. So for example, in our example, if we take that the property is not sold until the property is constructed to some extent, you call it as 50% of the construction on the property is over. If in order for you to construct the 50%, you would have availed certain inputs. For example, you would have purchased the cements, you would have purchased bricks, you would have availed input services of a contractor, you would have availed input services of engineer. So these are all these will form part of inputs. While doing this calculation, entire amount related to that construction has to be taken as 0 here, because you may not know at this stage whether the residential units will be sold before the completion of the construction or after the completion of the construction. If it is sold after the completion of the construction, then it is exempted, it will form part of exempted, then you will not be eligible for the ITC. If it's sold before the construction stage, completion of the construction, then it will be included in your taxable supply, then you are eligible for the ITC. But at this stage, I may not know when the sale will happen for these plots. That is the reason during the construction period, you have to take these ITC amount as 0. Only when actual sale has been made, then you have to give the relevant treatment, depends on the nature of sale. Clear? That is the reason we have to keep T4 as 0 at the initial stage. Okay, next, common credit arrived based on the previous formula. We have arrived at the previous common credit by applying the formula. Then that common credit has to be apportioned between taxable and exempted supplies based on the following formula. See, the previous formula which we have done, that you can call it as step 1. Step 1 is arriving at the common credit. Once we arrive at the common credit by applying the formula which we have discussed right now, then we have to apply one more formula. This formula you can call it as step 2. This formula has to be applied on the amount on the resultant amount of the previous step. What is the formula here? The formula here is nothing but, now we are going to calculate the ITC that is attributable to the exempt supplies. So the formula for that is turnover from exempt supply. You have to take the entire turnover from the exempt supplies into the amount of common credit. What is the amount of common credit? That you have to multiply with that divided by value of the total turnover within the state. You have to take the value of total turnover within the state, and that value of total turnover within the state is already defined in section 2 clause 112. We have discussed in our classes itself. So turnover from exempt supplies, and you can simply read the formula in this way: turnover from exempt supplies divided by total turnover into the amount of common credit. You will be getting a resultant figure. That resultant figure is the amount pertaining to the exempted supplies, and the balance amount of this is the amount pertaining to the taxable supplies. That is very well known. Okay, this calculation, the step 2 formula, after that calculation we can denote it as D1. We can denote it as D1. That is what we have calculated here. Next, manner of apportionment of common credit. Then we are again going for the continuing with the same concept. Here we have some provisos under this rule. Proviso 1 to rule 42 clause I is there. In case of above type of real estate transaction, I told you that there could be the real estate transaction could be in 2 scenarios. I will tell you the scenario here. See, there is a sale of building. The sale of building could be either before completion or after completion. If it is before completion, then it will be called as, it will be falling under para 5 clause B of schedule 2. If it is after completion, it will fall under para 5 of schedule 3. If it is before completion, then it is called as a taxable supply of services. If it is after completion, it is called as exempted supply, as per the explanation which we discussed before. In type, in terms of these type of transaction, what this proviso discusses, ratio of exempted supply as against the total turnover shall be computed on each project separately. This proviso says that, see, you have multiple projects. So on multiple projects, you have to compute this exempted supply, the amount of exempted supply as against the amount of total turnover. You have to compute on each project basis. That is number 1, it is given here. Next, exempted supply is how to, then they are giving the formula for computation of that exempted supply. Exempted supply is nothing but the total carpet area of exempted units plus total carpet area of units expected by promoter would be sold after its completion. That is the total. Divided by total turnover is nothing but the total carpet area of all units forming part of single project. I will again discuss this formula. Exempted supply is nothing but first total carpet area of the exempted units. What are all called as exempted units? Exempted units are nothing but the units that are already completed. The construction of those units are already completed, and you have got the completion certificate as well. And if the sale is made after the completion, then it is called as exempted supply, and the units pertaining to that is called as exempted units. Clear or not? First. Second, next we have to add one more amount on that. What amount? Carpet area of the units that are expected by the promoter, that would be sold only after its completion. The promoter is expecting that these are all the units that will not be sold during the construction. It will be sold only after the completion of the unit. That is what expected by the promoter. If that is the case, that amount also will be called as exempted supply. That will be added in this to arrive at the total value of exempted supply. With that, you have to compare with the total turnover. Next, if no turnover is available, there is another proviso. Proviso 2 says, if there is no turnover available during the tax period, then the value of last tax period where the turnover was available shall be considered. See, here we are speaking about the turnover. For example, during the current period, you have input tax credit, but you do not have any turnover. In that case, how will you get the turnover? You can get the turnover which was available in your last period. Last period may not be previous month or previous month. It could be the last period when the turnover was actually available. That could be your reference turnover, and that can be considered for doing this computation. Then there is another explanation under this clause, which is nothing but any duty or tax levied on the following amounts. The duties or taxes that are levied on following amounts will not be included in in this computation. It will not be included within this turnover. What is that? Excise duty on petroleum, high speed diesel, motor spirit, etc. We all discussed some 5 items. On that 5 items, if there is any excess duty charged and you have paid that excess duty, that will not form part of your turnover. Next, any duty on alcoholic liquor for human consumption, that also will not form part of your total turnover while arriving at the turnover here for this computation purpose. Next, now we are going to discuss that in case of in case of any inputs that are partly used for business purpose and partly used for other than business purpose, they have in the act they have foreseen this scenario as other than business purpose. They have not deliberately mentioned it as personal purpose. If it is used for other than business purpose, either it is for personal purpose or for any other reason. If it is not used for business, then what is the treatment here? They say that 5% of the common credit, you have to take commonly as 5% of the common credit, and that has to be treated as ITC, input tax credit, that is pertaining to for the other than business purpose. You don't ask me a question how this 5% is arrived. This 5% is generally foreseen by the legislative authorities. They have foreseen that for any businessman only 5% could be relevant for their personal use, but mostly they will be using only for the business purpose. That is the reason they have deliberately told in the act only 5%. You cannot assume your own percentage for this purpose, and that 5% has to be reversed or it has to be lapsed. It is not eligible as a credit that is relevant for other than business purpose. Okay, now after doing all this computation, now we are going to arrive at the total eligible ITC for your business. That is nothing but C2. We discussed C2. C2 is what? C2 is nothing but the total common credit, the resultant figure of step 1. Remember that in that you have to reduce 2 items. One is D1. D1 is nothing but amount ITC that is pertaining to the exempted supplies. That is D1. Then you have to also reduce D2. D2 is nothing but the amount that is pertaining to the personal use. That is what we discussed now. It is 5% of the common credit. They say 5% of the common credit. You should not calculate 5% on C2 minus D1. You have to calculate 5% directly on the C2. Please be very sure on this part. Next, the above computation has to be done separately for each tax loss. You have to do it for each tax loss. If it has to be done for IGST separately, CGST separately, SGST separately, or UTGST separately as well. It has to be done separately for each clauses. Okay, then there is one another scenario or provision provided here. One is that you are doing all this computation. This computation has to be done for every period. For every tax period you are filing your returns, you can do this computation and you can arrive at whatever is the eligible credit for you, and that credit you can avail for every tax period. But once after the financial year is over, you have to do a final computation, and that final computation you have to make, and if there is any difference, that has to be adjusted in your next further following month's return. We will see the provisions relating to that. The above computation shall be done for filing return for the September month. They say that when you are filing your September month's return, that time you have to make your year-end adjustment. Why they say it as September month's return? Because you have to refer to our previous discussion also, which we have done in our part 1 video. What we discussed in that, the input tax credit can be maximum availed only either before the due date to file your September month return or before filing your annual return. This year-end adjustment also should be done during that time only, because if the resultant figure of this year-end adjustment is the excess credit, which is what you will be eligible, then you may forego this credit because of the provisions which we discussed before under section 16. So that is the reason they say that this year-end adjustment also should be done before filing the September month return or annual return, whichever is earlier. So there can be two scenarios here when we make this year-end adjustment. One is that you would have claimed the excess credit when you do this year-end adjustment. You would have claimed excess credit in your previous month's return. The calculation which you make tax period after tax period, that you can call it as provisional computation, and year-end adjustment for our discussion purpose we will call it as final computation. During your provisional computation you would have claimed the excess credit, and in the final computation it is resulted as an excess credit already claimed. In that scenario you have to reverse the amount which is claimed in excess, that has to be reversed at this scenario, at this juncture, and any interest has to be paid on that. The excess credit has to be paid. The duration for computation of interest is nothing but 1st of April, because this is you are doing for the previous financial year. The 1st of April following your previous financial year, from that day till the date of payment you have to compute the interest, and that interest you have to pay along with the reversals you make on the ITC. Next, if there is, that is the scenario 1. Scenario 2 could be vice versa. If you have claimed only short credit, that is the credit which you have claimed during your provisional computation is very less, and your final computation gives extra credit eligible, in that case you can claim the balance credit. There is no stoppage in that. You can claim the balance credit. In all these adjustments has to be done before filing your September month's return. Now we are going to discuss an example based on the rules or the computations we have done now. Okay, the question goes like this: Y Limited manufactures taxable as well as exempted goods, and Y Limited also simultaneously provides taxable as well as exempted services. Y Limited is a taxable outward. Y Limited is a manufacturer. They manufacture both taxable as well as exempted goods. Y Limited also provides services, and services also provide taxable services and exempted services. Raw material of 10,000 units were purchased at rupees 100 per unit and used commonly during the month of January 2018. Our tax period here is January 2018, and they have purchased 10,000 units of raw materials during this period, and it is purchased at 100 rupees per unit. And all the final products are produced only by using this raw material. GST paid on those raw materials is 12%. Input services commonly used for all goods and services in the month of January 2018. Input services are commonly used for all the goods and services. Total ITC on inputs and input services taken into the books of account relevant to the tax period is 1,74,000. Turnover, they have provided the details of the turnover: taxable turnover, exempted supply of goods turnover, taxable supply of services turnover, exempted supply of services turnover. The total turnover comes to 4,50,000. Now we have to compute the amount of reversal of input tax credit. What is the amount we have to reverse in the input tax credit based on the computation which we discussed now? That is for the tax period January 2018. They have provided a note also, which is each unit of exempted final products needs 2 units of raw material. For the exempted final products, it needs 2 units of raw materials to be consumed, and they say that there is no process loss also. So this question we have to answer step by step. Okay, now the first step is calculation of common credit. We know that step 1 is calculation of common credit. ITC on the total inputs, that is what, 1,74,000, that is T here, and ITC on exclusive exempted supplies. ITC while on exclusive exempted supplies is 30,000. We will see how the 30,000 is arrived. Then ITC for both taxable as well as exempted supplies, that is what the amount pertaining to common credit. Sorry, it is C1, amount available for utilization. Then the ITC on exclusive taxable supplies, which ITC that is pertaining to exclusive taxable supplies, that is 90,000. We will discuss how the 90,000 is arrived as well. Then the common ITC is, the common credit is 54,000. Now step 2. Step 2 is nothing but calculation of proportionate ITC, that is relevant for exempted supplies. Okay. Step 2, that is ITC on exempted supplies is nothing but lakh and 50,000 divided by 4 lakh and 50,000 into 54,000. We are just applying the formula. The ITC relevant for exempted supplies is 18,000. Now we will discuss the working notes, how we arrived at the exclusive exempted supplies ITC and exclusive taxable supplies ITC. Number of units of exempted final product is 1250 units. How the 1250 units arrived? 1 lakh divided by 80 per unit is the 1250 units. And each exempted product needs 2 units of raw material. 2 units of raw material into 1250 units is 2500 units. Are we clear or not? So based on this problem is answered. Okay, next. Now we are going to see ITC on capital goods and reversals of it. Now we see in the previous rule we discussed ITC on regular inputs which are used partly for business, partly for other than business, or partly for providing outward taxable supplies and partly for providing outward exempted supplies. Now we are entering into rule 43. This rule 43 discusses on ITC, that is on both capital goods, on how the reversals has to be happen. Okay, now we are seeing that capital goods are divided into following 4 categories. 1, exclusively used for other purposes or for exempt supplies. The capital goods that are exclusively used either for providing other than business purpose or for providing exempted outward supplies. That is one type of capital goods. Second, capital goods that are exclusively used for providing taxable supplies. Okay, these 2 types of capital goods, now we are referring it as ECG. ECG is nothing but exclusive capital goods. Next, the capital goods that are used during construction of building. Because this type of capital goods we are differentiating separately, because we know that the value has to be taken in a differential manner or in a different type. Then there is a residual capital goods or other capital goods that we call it as CCG. CCG is nothing but common capital goods. Okay, the treatment for each and every type of capital goods is nothing but first type of capital goods you have to that is not available as credit at all. The tax paid on in purchasing those capital goods, that is not at all available as credit. If it is ECG, that is used for either other than business purpose or for providing exempted supplies. We all know that the ITC is totally not eligible, that is not to be taken at all, considered at all. Next type of ECG is nothing but providing capital goods used for exclusively for providing taxable outward supplies. That is totally available as credit. The ITC on those ECG are totally available as credit. Next, ITC used during construction of building shall be taken as nil during the construction phase or before sale. I told you that it is similar to how the inputs, treatment of inputs also we discussed the T4 scenario. Next, other than capital goods, that is the common capital goods, shall be taken as ITC with useful life being 5 years. For the common capital goods, we have to consider or we have to assume that the useful life of those capital goods is 5 years, and based on that we have to compute the ITC, and the treatment also should be given accordingly. Okay, there is a proviso here. If exclusive capital goods converted into common capital goods, what is the treatment? If any exclusive capital goods are converted into common capital goods, then the ITC on purchase, the total whatever the ITC available at the time of purchase shall be reduced at 5%. 5% shall be reduced for every quarter from the date of purchase till the date of such conversion. When this computation is applicable, when the capital goods, exclusive capital goods are converted into common capital goods. The ECG I am referring here could be for both the scenario. It could be either exclusively used for providing outward taxable supplies or exclusively used for providing outward exempted supplies. Whatever the case may be, if it is converted into common capital goods, then we have to arrive at the amount of ITC available at the time of conversion by reducing 5 percentage points for every quarter from the date of purchase. Okay, amount arrived above shall be called as common credit. The above type of the amount which we have arrived based on our previous discussion is called as common credit, and that will be denoted as TC. Amount of ITC on CCG, that is on the common credit capital goods, shall be with respect to one tax period shall be denoted as TM, that is calculated as TM is equal to TC divided by 60. Why it is divided by 60? Here we refer the tax period as 1 month, because in GST we are filing monthly returns. In certain scenarios we may even file quarterly returns also. If it is a quarterly return, then it will not be divided by 60, it will be divided by what? 5 into 4 is 20, it will be divided by 20. Here we are dividing it by 60 because we foresee 60 months, 60 tax periods is what the capital goods are having the useful life. Amount of ITC that are attributable for exempted supplies shall be calculated in this by applying this formula. TC is equal to E divided by F into TR. So TR is nothing but unexpired or pending ITC on CCG. See, for every capital goods we have to take the ITC commonly across the 60 months duration. Every tax period you have to take you have to compute the remaining balance of ITC available to be available for utilization. That amount you have to calculate, that is called as TR. That TR has to be taken for a proportionate basis for the exempted supplies by applying this formula. Okay. Then section 17 subsection 4 is what we are again entering into now. Section 17 subsection 4 is a banking or a financial institution. This section subsection deals with ITC, that is input tax credit or treatment of input tax credit by a banking or an NBFC or a financial institution. How the treatment has to be made. In supply of services by way of extend loans or advances or accept deposits. See, this subsection 4 first says what is a banking or a financial institution. The banking or a financial institutions are nothing but the person who are into supply of services by way of extending loans or advances or accepting any deposits. They have an option to either comply with section 17 subsection 2 read with rule 42. That is one option. They have an option, either they can comply with that subsection 2 or they can avail 50%. Straight away they can avail 50% of the ITC every month on inputs, and the balance they can lapse. See, either they can follow the discussions which we have made till now, which is relevant to section 17 subsection 2. What is section 17 subsection 2? Inputs that are partly used for providing taxable outward supplies, partly used for providing exempted outward supplies. So either they can, under read with rule 42, they can do the apportionment of credit based on the calculations provided in that, or if they don't want to complicate that scenario, or if it is not even beneficial for them, then they can opt for taking straight away blanket 50% of the ITC for every tax period, and the balance 50% they will have to lapse. There are two options available only for a banking and the financial institution. There is a proviso under this. The proviso says that once the option is exercised, it cannot be changed during the balance financial year. They cannot choose to apply, they cannot choose to shift between these two options for every tax period. They have to, if once they choose to follow one of the option here, and that option shall be valid till the entire part of the financial year. If at all they wanted to shift to another option or change their choice, they have to make only in the beginning of the next financial year. Then there is another proviso, 50% shall not apply to tax paid on supplies made by distinct persons. They say that this 50% shall not apply to tax paid on supplies made by distinct persons. Distinct persons are nothing but, we already discussed under section 25, we already discussed distinct persons are multiple registrations by a single PAN. So those multiple registrations, the supply made between them, on that if any taxes are paid, that on that taxes this 50% will not be applicable. On that taxes you can claim 100%. That is what this proviso 2 says. And rule 38, there is another relevant rule for this section. Rule 38 says procedure for option under section 17.4, how the option has to be exercised under this subsection 4. ITC not to be not eligible on to be availed on supplies received for other than business purpose. See, the 50%, either it is 50% or if at all they want to choose this 50%, then they should not take the ITC availed for other than business purpose, and they should not avail the ITC for on blocked credits, and they should not avail ITC on supplies from distinct persons and ITC from supplies other than the above persons. So all these things they have to keep in mind while they choose this option. Okay. So we have finished with the provisions relating to ITC by any banking or a financial institution or apportionment of a common ITC. Now we are entering into a very important concept. It is nothing, it is the concept of blocked credits. What are all the items or what are all the inputs that is called that will fall under blocked credits is what we are going to discuss now. There is the section relevant to this is section 17 subsection 5. We discussed section 17 subsection 1, subsection 2, subsection 3 and subsection 4 is also over. Now we are entering into discussion on section 17 subsection 5. Subsection 5 speaks about blocked credits. That but relevant subsection starts with the non-obstante clause. What is called as non-obstante clause? Non-obstante clause means the section will start with the following words. It says that notwithstanding anything contained in section 16 subsection 1 and section 18 subsection 1 in respect of ITC. Notwithstanding in the sense, if there is any contrary provided in these two subsections, then this subsection will prevail over them. This subsection has a privilege over those two subsections, and this has more applicability if there is any contradictory provisions available in these two subsections. Clear? That is what the meaning of this non-obstante clause. Whenever you read any act and if you come across any non-obstante clause, then you have to understand that provision in that manner. If it says notwithstanding anything contained in the previous provisions, etc., like that, then if there is any contrary, if the previous provisions does not have any applicability with this provision, relevance with this provision, then whatever discussed in the previous provisions shall prevail. But if there is any contradiction provided in the previous section and you have any doubt, then because of this non-obstante clause, you have to only refer to this section, and this section will have an upper hand than the previous section related to those contradictions. Clear? Now we entering into the real provisions of subsection 5 of section 17. There are multiple clauses under that, and each clause refers to each type of input services. We will see there is a table we have provided here. The table column number 1 gives you the clause number. Column number 2 says on which the ITC are not allowed. On the goods provided under column number 2, on that ITC is not allowed at all. On the items provided under column number 3 is just an exception to column number 2. Exception to column number 2 means ITC is available on that. It will not fall under the blocked credit concept, and ITC is eligible on those items. Clear? Let us go discuss clause one by one. Clause A. Motor vehicles with seating capacity up to 13 persons including driver. See, if you are purchasing a motor vehicle, then on that ITC is not allowed. It falls under blocked credit. What type of motor vehicle? If the motor vehicle is designed to carry passengers up to 13 people including driver, it means what? 12 plus 1. We know that 12 plus 1 type of motor vehicle. Up to that motor vehicle, if you are purchasing, then you are not eligible for ITC. For example, if you purchase a two-wheeler, you are not eligible for ITC because it is designed to carry only 2 people. If you are purchasing a car, 5-seater car, then you are not eligible for ITC paid on those purchase because that is only 5-seater. Even if you purchase a 7-seater SUV, that is also you are not eligible for ITC because of this provisions. Okay, next there is an exception to this. Exception, there are three exceptions. One, if the above motor vehicle, the motor vehicle restricted before, if it is purchased for further supply, you are a dealer in cars, you purchase cars from the manufacturer and sell it to the consumer. Even if it is a 4-seater car or a 7-seater car, you are eligible to claim ITC on the purchase of that car, and that can be adjusted against the sale of that car to the ultimate consumer. Because if it is purchased for the purpose of further supply, then it will not form under the blocked credit because of this exception. Second one is transportation of goods and passengers. If the above vehicle is used for the purpose of transporting any goods or transporting any passengers, then you will not be then this blocked credit will not apply on that, and you are eligible for the ITC. Or if the vehicle is used for imparting training is nothing but if it is used by a driving school for the purpose of teaching driving to a public, then tax paid on purchase of that vehicle is available as input tax credit. Clear? That is clause A. Then clause AA. Clause AA is vessels and aircraft. If the vessels and aircraft, generally if you are purchasing the vessels and aircraft, it is ITC is not allowed, but there is an exception. Exception is if the vessels or aircraft is purchased for the purpose of resupply or for a resale purpose, then ITC is allowed. If the vessels or aircraft are used for the purpose of transportation of goods or passengers, then ITC is allowed. Or if the vessels or aircraft is used for imparting training, either for navigating or flying. Navigating for the purpose of vessels, because vessels you are used and you are training a captain. For example, a company is into the business of training captains. What the captain will be trained? The captain will be trained for navigating. They will be trained by using the vessel. That if the company purchases that vessel for the purpose of doing this training, then the ITC on that purchase is available. Or for flying, if there is any training for the pilots, then the ITC is available for that. Okay. Next clause is clause AB. Clause AB is services of general insurance or repairing or servicing in relation to motor vehicles or vessels, which we discussed before. It is not only the ITC is not allowed on purchase of those vehicles, ITC is not allowed even for the insurance. If you are putting insurance for the vehicles, you have a 2-wheeler or 4-wheeler and you have to renew your insurance, you have to pay insurance for every year. You all know that. For those insurance, if you are making any tax GST payment, that is not eligible as ITC. Or repairing those vehicles, it is not eligible for ITC. Or servicing. So if all these scenarios, it is not eligible for ITC. But these ITC on these services are eligible if the goods are falling under the exception scenario. We discussed the exceptions for the motor vehicles or vessels. If it is falling within the exception scenario, then ITC on these items are also eligible. If it is falling within the blocked credit scenario, then ITC on these also will not be eligible. Okay, there is a proviso under this clause. Vehicles or vessels or aircrafts are used for purposes specified only. Then persons engaged in manufacture of such vehicles or supply of general insurance for such vehicles. So these are all the items provided under proviso. Next clause is clause B subclause 1. Clause B subclause 1 says that ITC is not allowed for the following items. What are all those items? These items are generally for the personal consumption. Even these items are availed for the purpose of your employees, consumption by your employees, then also it is blocked to be availed. What are all those items? Food and beverages, outdoor catering, beauty treatment, health services, cosmetic or plastic surgery, leasing, renting or hiring of motor vehicles, life insurance, health insurance. If these are all the items, if it is availed for the purpose of it forms under the blocked credits, so ITC is not available on these items. There is an exception to it by way of a proviso. ITC on these supplies are available if outward supply is of a same category or an element of taxable composite or mixed supply. Clear? if the for example, you are buying certain food and beverages, if you are consuming yourself, then ITC is not eligible. But if you are buying food and beverages and that is again used for making outward sale, then ITC on those purchases eligible. I will give you an example. An aircraft, Indigo flight is there, and you will get food in that. The person, the Indigo is not making their own food. They may purchase those foods from an outside caterer. They can call it as a flight kitchen. There are flight kitchen concept. From flight kitchen, they supply food to the Indigo Airlines. Those Indigo Airlines will purchase the food and beverage from the flight kitchen, and they will supply it to the consumer. The consumer will pay for it. So Indigo Airlines is eligible for the tax paid on purchase of those food and beverages from the flight kitchen. This is an example. Next is clause B, subclause 2, membership of a club. If there is if you are making any tax payment of taxes for membership of a club or a health center or fitness club. Fitness club is nothing but if it is a gym, you are paying your subscription for gym, and along with that you are paying GST, you are not eligible for claim any ITC. Then clause B subclause 3 is LTA benefits for employees. If the company is making any LTA payment for employee, LTA is nothing but leave travel allowance. If the company is paying any allowance to the employees for the employees to undertake their personal travel, that is called as leave travel allowance. Some certain companies pay that also. If that LTA benefits are paid and any taxes paid on that, that is not eligible for ITC. But there is a proviso again here that will form under fall under exception scenario. ITC shall be available if provision of LTA to employees obliged by any law or statute. If any law mandates the employer to pay that LTA to the employee, on that ITC will be eligible. That is an exception to this scenario. Next is clause C. Clause C is a works contract service in relation to an immovable property. If any works contract service is availed in relation to any immovable property, then it will fall under blocked credit. ITC is not allowed for that. But there is an exception to it, is works contract provided in relation to plant and machinery. If you are availing a works contract in relation to a plant and machinery, then ITC is available on that. What is in relation to plant and machinery? For example, you appoint certain person to make some repairs to the plant and machinery. So on that, if you are on the payment which you are making to the technician, on that if you are making any taxes, that is available ITC, because the works contract is available, availed for the purpose of plant and machinery. If the works contract is availed for the purpose of your construction of your own building, then ITC is not eligible. Also, one another exception is input service for providing outward works contract supply. You avail certain works contract supply for the purpose of providing outward works contract supply, then the ITC on the input works contract supply, it is available, that because that falls under the exception category. Then clause D, supply received for construction of immovable property on your own account. If you are availing any supply of services, they say any supply received for construction of an immovable property. We all know what are all the input supplies you may need. It could be purchase of cement, bricks, sand, or even supply of services in relation to engineer services or any mason services, whatever the case may be. If the construction of the immovable property is for your own purpose, it is not for the business purpose, if it is for your own purpose, then ITC on purchase of those items are not eligible. If those supply, there is again exception to it, is if those supplies are received in relation to plant and machinery, or if it is received in relation to furtherance of business, then it is eligible. What is received in relation to furtherance of business? If a real estate agent gives a subcontract to a construction person, and they construct the property on behalf of the real estate agent, then the the tax paid to the subcontractor is eligible as ITC, because the construction is done for the purpose of resale, for the furtherance of the business of the real estate agent. It is not for his own purpose. We will discuss the next clause now. Clause E, tax paid on supply received from composition taxpayer. Any taxes you pay for the supply which is received from a composition taxpayer, then the ITC on that is not allowed. Then clause F, supply received by any non-resident taxable person. If any supply is received by an non-resident taxable person, then it is ITC on that is not allowed. There is one exception to it. If there is any goods which is imported by him and he pays taxes on that, then ITC is allowed on that. Clause G, supply used for personal consumption. I already told you, if you have received any supply which is for your personal consumption, it is for your personal purpose, then obviously the ITC on that is not allowed at all. Then clause H, if you have availed any, if you have purchased any goods but those goods are lost, or those goods are stolen, or those goods are destroyed or disposed of as a free samples as well, in these scenarios the tax paid on purchase of those goods are not eligible as ITC. Here you may feel even pity for the person as well, because he paid taxes for purchase of those goods and those goods are already stolen or those goods are lost also. There is a loss for him, not only on the value of goods, even he has to forego the credit on those goods as well, because the tax paid on those goods also is not eligible as credit because of this clause. That is the reason he will be at loss even on the tax amount. Next is clause I, tax paid upon fraud, detention or seizure and confiscation. If any tax is paid upon fraud or some detention or something, either by your supplier or you pay taxes, you are not eligible for ITC. I will discuss a scenario here. You purchase certain goods from your supplier has not charged any tax on it, because he may think he is not liable for taxation or liable for GST, but later point of time he has committed fraud on that, because by willingly knowing that he is eligible for charge tax, liable to charge tax, but he has not charged tax deliberately, and department finds out in the later point of time, and they issue a notice and demand order is issued on those supplier, and finally the supplier makes the payment of taxes. That amount you are not eligible for credit, because since the supplier has made taxes, it doesn't mean that you are eligible for credit. So these are all the items which falls under the blocked credit concept. This blocked credit concept is very important, and remembering all these items are also very important. Then we will discuss one circular issued by the department, circular number 72/46 for 2018, which is issued on 26th October 2018. If this circular is issued in respect to mainly for the medical industry. If there is a return, if the recipient of supply has returned the goods because it is expired, for example, a manufacturer of a medicine has supplied to a wholesale distributor. The wholesale distributor were not able to make a further supply of that medicine, and because of that, after some days the medicine got expired. After the medicine got expired, the wholesale distributor is again giving that medicine back to the manufacturer. That in that case, because of this circular, the transaction between the wholesale distributor to the manufacturer, that is supply of expired goods to the manufacturer, is to be treated as a fresh supply only. It should not be treated as a return of goods. It should be treated as a fresh supply. Recipient of such goods is eligible for ITC. In our example, the manufacturer is eligible for the ITC because the wholesale distributor has to definitely charge tax on the return of those goods, and that tax manufacturer is eligible as ITC. If goods received in return is destroyed, for example, the manufacturer, after receiving the expired medicines, if he destroys those medicines, then the ITC he availed has to be reversed as per section 17 subsection 5 clause H. We discussed if the goods are destroyed, stolen, or if the goods are given away as a free sample, whatever the case may be, because of that clause, the manufacturer has to reverse the ITC. He is not eligible for ITC if the received back expired goods are destroyed by him. There is an example: manufacturers availed ITC on 10,000 units at the time of purchase of inputs to manufacturer of medicines. At the time of return of such medicine on the account of expiry, the ITC available to the manufacturer on the basis of fresh invoice issued by the retailer or wholesaler, similar to our example, which is 15,000 rupees. The manufacturer is eligible for the ITC of 15,000 rupees, which he paid to the wholesale distributor on the transaction of return, because it is considered as a fresh supply. If so, how much ITC is required to be reversed at the time expired medicines are destroyed by the manufacturer? Manufacturer would be required to reverse ITC of 15,000 and not of 10,000, because ITC of 10,000 is on the inputs which we originally purchased for manufacturing these medicines. That input is available because he has made an outward sale of that. But the tax which he paid on buying back the expired goods, that is 15,000 rupees, that 15,000 rupees he has to reverse it here because of this circular. Next, we are now going to discuss a case law. Case law is between Commission of Central Excise versus RANE TRW Steering Systems Limited. This case law was issued in 2015 during the erstwhile law, and the decision was pronounced by Honorable Madras High Court. First, we see what is the facts of the case. Facts of the case is ITC of GST availed on housekeeping and gardening services. The taxpayer has availed ITC on the tax paid on availing the housekeeping and gardening services. Housekeeping and gardening services, whether it can be claimed as a personal consumption, because it is not related to the business directly. So they have claimed here the taxpayer has claimed, but the department has contended that the gardening or housekeeping services are not directly related to your outward supply. That is the reason you are not eligible for ITC under the blocked credit. They disallowed the ITC and they imposed a penalty for that as well. But the Madras High Court has decided by relying on a previous judgment. The previous judgment, they have relied on a judgment of Millipur India Private Limited, which was given in 2012 itself by Karnataka High Court. They say that this type of services falls within the ambit of repairs and renovation, because the gardening services or housekeeping services are very well required by a factory act. For example, they are received as part of their factory. The factory has to be kept clean. The housekeeping services are required. The gardens has to be kept clean. If you have not put a gardener person and you have not received any gardening services, then the gardens will go bad, and it will make difficult for the employees to work there, and it will affect the environment of the employees as well. So it is very well essential for the employees to work peacefully there. That is the reason it can be treated as received in the course of business. So the tax paid on those those supplies as well is eligible for ITC. And one more thing is, like, the taxpayer here has included the cost of those gardening services also in their output product. That is also evidencing that the gardening services are received in the course of business. That is the reason the High Court has decided in the favor of taxpayer. They have allowed the ITC. Now we will have a small slide. In this slide we will just discuss some important amendments in this. Motor vehicles, they say that input tax credit will be available in respect of dumpers, work trucks, forklift trucks and other special purpose motor vehicles, because these motor vehicles are used only for the business purpose. A normal common man will not own any dumper or work trucks or forklift trucks etc. for his own personal purpose. He will be just buying those motor vehicles only for providing any outward business. That is the reason ITC is available on purchase of those motor vehicles. Vessels and aircraft when these are used for personal purposes. Next, transportation. ITC allowed for motor vehicles used for transportation of money or by a banking company or a financial institution. You know that a banking company nowadays avails some third party service providers to take up the money from their own wallet to the nearer ATMs, because they have to refill the money in the ATMs. For that they use some third party service provider to carry the money transport it to the nearby ATM and to refill the ATM. For that purpose, the ITC is allowed to the banking company. And if any services is provided by the employer to the employee and which is obligated to the employer by any law in force, on that scenario is also ITC is available. That is what certain important amendments under this provisions. We will also further discuss certain provisions in our in the part 3 of the video. We will be having one more part for this video, which is part 3 of the video. We will be discussing the balance left out provisions under this concept of input tax credit. Clear? Thank you.